100,000 years ago, when ice gripped the earth and humanity's ancestors roamed wild plains, what if an advanced civilization thrived in secret? Not primitive tribes, but a society of brilliant minds, building towering structures, harnessing unknown energies, and mapping the stars with uncanny precision. Their cities, now lost to time, might lie buried beneath deserts or submerged under oceans. Their story whispered in ancient myths of golden ages and great floods. What if everything we believe about our past is wrong, and the echoes of a forgotten empire are waiting to be uncovered? This is the thrilling mystery we unravel. The rise, reign, and vanishing of an advanced civilization from 100,000 years ago. A saga that could rewrite the story of humanity itself. Picture the Earth 100,000 years ago. The continents are roughly where they are now, but the world is wilder, rawer. Glaciers carve the northern landscapes, vast savannas stretch across Africa, and dense forests cloak much of what we now call Europe and Asia. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, are just beginning to spread across the globe, sharing it with Neanderthals and other hominids. According to the history books, these early humans were hunter-gatherers, living in small bands, crafting simple tools from stone and bone, painting caves with images of animals and hands. But what if that's not the whole story? What if, hidden in the vastness of that ancient world, a group of humans, or perhaps another species entirely, achieved something extraordinary? What if they unlocked secrets of science, engineering, or even energy that allowed them to build a civilization far beyond what we've imagined possible for that time? The idea sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? A lost civilization, buried by time, erased by the relentless forces of nature. Yet, the more we look, the more we find hints that challenge the tidy timeline of human progress we've been taught. Consider the caves of southern France, where paintings dating back 80,000 years show not just animals, but intricate geometric patterns, lines and shapes that suggest a mind capable of abstract thought, perhaps even calculation. These aren't the crude scratches of a primitive people. They're precise, deliberate, almost as if they were meant to convey something more than art. Could they be maps, blueprints, symbols of a knowledge system we've yet to understand? And what about the stories told by cultures across the globe? Tales of golden ages, of great cities swallowed by the sea, of gods who taught humanity the arts of building and writing. From the legend of Atlantis to the ancient Sumerian tales of a time before the flood, these myths persist, passed down through countless generations. Are they mere fantasies, or could they be distorted memories of something real? Let's step back and think about what an advanced civilization 100,000 years ago might mean. When we say advanced, we don't necessarily mean computers or skyscrapers. Advancement could look different in a world so unlike our own. Perhaps they mastered sustainable energy, harnessing the power of rivers or the sun in ways we can only guess at. Maybe they developed forms of communication, written or even telepathic, that left no physical trace. Or perhaps their technology was organic, grown rather than built, blending seamlessly with the natural world. Imagine a society that constructed vast stone structures, not unlike the megaliths we know, but on a scale we've never discovered, now buried under layers of sediment or submerged beneath rising seas. The Earth is a dynamic place. Plate tectonics grind away evidence, oceans swallow coastlines, and time scatters the remnants of the past. If such a civilization existed, its traces could be all around us, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to ask the right questions. But why haven't we found definitive proof? That's the question skeptics ask, and it's a fair one. Mainstream archaeology tells us that civilization began around 12,000 years ago, with the rise of agriculture in places like Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. Before that, we're told, humans were too scattered, too primitive to organize into anything resembling a complex society. Yet, there are anomalies that don't quite fit this narrative. Take Göbekli Tepe, a site in modern-day Turkey, dated to 11,000 years ago. Its massive T-shaped pillars, carved with intricate reliefs, were built by people we once thought were simple hunter-gatherers. This discovery turned archaeology on its head, suggesting that complex societies might have existed far earlier than we thought. If Göbekli Tepe exists at 11,000 years, what might we find if we push the clock back further, much further? The challenge is that time is a brutal editor. Over 100,000 years, wind, water, and ice can erase almost anything. Cities built of wood or biodegradable materials would vanish. Metal tools would corrode into dust. Even stone structures could be buried under layers of earth or submerged as sea levels rose during the end of the last ice age. Consider the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. Submerged stone formations that some argue are natural, while others see the hand of human engineering. The debate rages because the evidence is ambiguous, worn down by millennia under the waves. If an advanced society existed 100,000 years ago, its greatest works could be lost to us, hidden beneath oceans or ground to rubble by glaciers. Let's imagine a scene. Picture a vast plain in what is now sub-Saharan Africa. 100,000 years ago, a city sprawls across the landscape. Its buildings not of steel or glass, but of carefully shaped stone and woven plant fibers, designed to harmonize with the environment. People move through bustling markets, trading goods from distant regions, obsidian from volcanic mountains, shells from a far-off coast. Scholars gather in open-air forums, debating the movements of the stars, their knowledge encoded in symbols we might mistake for art. Engineers oversee the construction of a massive structure, a temple or observatory, its purpose lost to time. Children play in courtyards, unaware that their world will one day be forgotten, its story buried under the weight of millennia. This is the civilization we're imagining, a society that rose, flourished, and then faded, leaving us to piece together its existence from fragments. Now, let's bring in the voices of those who study the past. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an archaeologist known for pushing the boundaries of conventional thought, has spent years exploring the idea of a lost civilization. She argues that our understanding of early humans is limited by our assumptions. We assume they were primitive because their tools were simple. But simplicity doesn't always mean a lack of sophistication. A stick and a stone can be used to build a fire, to navigate by the stars, to create art that speaks across millennia. What if those early humans, or perhaps a forgotten branch of our family tree, unlocked knowledge we've only recently rediscovered? Dr. Vasquez points to anomalies like the Blombos cave engravings in South Africa, dated to 100,000 years ago, which show crosshatch patterns that could suggest early mathematical thinking. She asks us to consider whether these are the work of isolated individuals or evidence of a broader, organized culture. On the other side, Dr. Michael Carter, a traditional archaeologist, urges caution. He argues that while the idea of an ancient advanced civilization is intriguing, it lacks hard evidence. The artifacts we have, stone tools, bone carvings, point to a gradual progression of human skill, not a sudden leap to complexity. Yet even he admits that our picture of the past is incomplete. Only a tiny fraction of the Earth's surface has been excavated, and much of what we might find lies beneath oceans or in remote, unexplored regions. The absence of evidence, he concedes, is not evidence of absence. This debate isn't new. For centuries, thinkers have speculated about lost worlds. The Greek philosopher Plato wrote of Atlantis, a great civilization swallowed by the sea. Ancient Sumerian texts speak of a time before the flood, when gods and men walked together. Indigenous cultures across the Americas, Africa, and Australia tell of golden ages, of ancestors who wielded powers we can scarcely imagine. These stories, dismissed as myths by some, might hold kernels of truth, distorted by the passage of time. What if they're not just stories, but echoes of a real past, a past we've forgotten because we weren't ready to understand it? Let's explore one possibility. Imagine a civilization that developed not in isolation, but through contact with others. Trade routes stretching across continents, ideas exchanged between distant peoples. Perhaps they sailed the seas, mapping coastlines that no longer exist. Their ships, made of wood or reeds, would have long since decayed, but their journeys might live on in the oral traditions of coastal peoples. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia, for example, have stories of a time when the land was different, when great waters reshaped the world. These stories, passed down for tens of thousands of years, align with geological evidence of rising sea levels. Could they also preserve memories of a lost society? The implications are staggering. If an advanced civilization existed 100,000 years ago, it forces us to rethink everything. Our origins, our progress, our place in the universe. Were they human, like us, or were they something else? A species or subspecies now extinct, their legacy absorbed into our own? Did they fall to war, disease, or environmental collapse, as so many civilizations have since? And if they existed, what can we learn from their rise and fall? The answers lie not just in the ground, but in the questions we dare to ask. As we embark on this journey, we'll explore the clues, geological, mythological, archaeological, that hint at this lost world. We'll imagine what their cities, their lives, their dreams might have been like. We'll ask scientists, skeptics, and visionaries to weigh in, to challenge our assumptions and expand our horizons. And we'll confront the possibility that our history is far older, far stranger than we've ever dared to believe. This is not just a story of the past, it's a story of who we are and who we might become. So let us begin with open minds and fearless curiosity to uncover the truth of a world that may have existed long before our own. Let's journey deeper into the mystery of a possible advanced civilization 100,000 years ago, turning our gaze to the earth itself. The rocks, the soil, the layers of time beneath our feet hold secrets, clues that might hint at a lost world. If a society as sophisticated as ours, or even more so, existed in the distant past, what traces might it have left? Could the ground we walk on, the stones we unearth, or the anomalies we stumble across in the fossil record point to something extraordinary? This is the question we explore now. What geological and paleontological evidence might support the idea of an advanced civilization from a time when humanity, as we know it, was just beginning to take shape? Picture the Earth 100,000 years ago. The planet is in the grip of the Pleistocene, a time of dramatic climate swings. Glaciers advance and retreat, carving valleys and reshaping landscapes. Sea levels rise and fall as ice melts and reforms, swallowing coastlines and exposing new lands. In this dynamic world, early humans and their cousins, Neanderthals, Denisovans, perhaps others we've yet to discover, are navigating a planet that is both bountiful and brutal. According to conventional science, these people lived simply, hunting game, gathering plants, and crafting tools from flint and bone. But what if that's not the whole story? What if somewhere in this vast world, a group of them, or another species entirely, achieved a leap forward? What if they built structures, harnessed resources, or manipulated their environment in ways we've never imagined? If they did, the evidence would be hard to find, but not impossible. The Earth is a keeper of secrets, and sometimes it whispers them to those who know how to listen. Let's start with the geology. The Earth's crust is a restless canvas, constantly reshaped by tectonic forces, erosion, and sedimentation. Over 100,000 years, entire landscapes can vanish. A city built on a coastal plain could be submerged as sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago. A mountain settlement could be ground to dust by glaciers or buried under layers of volcanic ash. Yet, even in this churn, some clues endure. Consider the possibility of out-of-place artifacts, objects that don't fit the timeline we've constructed. In the 19th century, miners in California reportedly found gold-encased tools embedded in rock dated to millions of years old. Skeptics dismiss these as hoaxes or misinterpretations, but what if some are genuine? What if a hammer, a pot, or a piece of machinery was preserved in a freak geological event, locked in stone for millennia? These anomalies, though rare and controversial, challenge us to reconsider what's possible. Then there's the question of megastructures. We know ancient peoples built impressive monuments, Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, the pyramids, but what if far older structures lie hidden? Imagine a network of stone circles, observatories, or even dams constructed 100,000 years ago. Over time, erosion could reduce them to rubble, or sediment could bury them deep. Yet some might survive, mistaken for natural formations. Take the Yonaguni Monument, a series of submerged stone structures off Japan's coast. Its stepped terraces and sharp angles suggest human craftsmanship to some, while others argue it's a natural formation shaped by waves. Dated to at least 10,000 years ago, it sits in waters that were dry land during the Ice Age. Could it be a remnant of something far older, a fragment of a lost civilization's work? The debate rages because the evidence is ambiguous, worn by time and water, but it forces us to ask, what else might lie beneath the oceans? The oceans are key. During the last Ice Age, sea levels were up to 400 feet lower than today. Vast stretches of land, coastal plains where early humans likely thrived, are now underwater. If an advanced society built cities along these ancient shores, their ruins could be hidden beneath the waves from the North Sea to the Persian Gulf. Divers have found tantalizing hints: submerged stone walls off India's coast, ancient tools in the Mediterranean, even possible roads in the Bahamas. These sites are often dismissed as natural or misdated, but they remind us how much of the Earth's past lies beyond our reach. If a civilization existed 100,000 years ago, its greatest works might be drowned, waiting for technology to catch up with our curiosity. Now, let's turn to the paleontological record. Fossils tell the story of life on Earth, but they're notoriously incomplete. Only a tiny fraction of creatures become fossilized, and even fewer are found. If an advanced society existed, could we find traces of their existence in the bones of the past? Perhaps not in human remains. Homo sapiens from 100,000 years ago look much like us, but in what they left behind. Imagine tools made of bone or ivory, shaped with precision we don't associate with that era. In South Africa's Blombos Cave, archaeologists found a piece of ochre etched with crosshatch patterns, dated to 100,000 years ago. It's one of the oldest known examples of symbolic thought. Could it be more? A fragment of a writing system, a mathematical notation, or a tool for navigation? The fossil record might also hold clues to domestication. If this society tamed animals or cultivated plants, we might find unusual concentrations of certain species, like domesticated dogs or early crops, preserved in ancient sediment. But there's another possibility. What if their technology wasn't like ours? What if they used organic materials, wood, fibers, even engineered biomaterials that decomposed long ago? A civilization that built with biodegradable substances would leave little for us to find. Even their metal tools, if they had them, would corrode into dust over millennia, especially in humid or acidic environments. The absence of skyscrapers or circuit boards doesn't mean they lacked sophistication. They might have mastered sustainable technologies, blending their creations with the natural world in ways we're only beginning to explore today. Imagine structures grown from living plants, or energy harnessed from geothermal vents, leaving no trace after thousands of years. Let's consider the climate. Ice core data from Greenland and Antarctica show sudden, unexplained shifts in temperature and atmospheric composition around 100,000 years ago. Could these be natural, or might they hint at human activity? A civilization burning fuel, clearing forests, or experimenting with early industry could leave subtle marks in the ice, changes in carbon levels, traces of pollutants, or even microscopic particles of worked materials. Scientists studying these cores have found anomalies, spikes in methane, unusual mineral deposits. Most attribute these to volcanic activity or cosmic events. But what if some reflect the work of an advanced society? The evidence is faint, open to interpretation, but it's there, waiting for us to connect the dots. Now imagine a dig site in a remote corner of the world, say the Sahara. Once a lush savanna, 100,000 years ago. archaeologists uncover a layer of sediment, unusually compacted, containing fragments of what appear to be worked stone, aligned in patterns that defy natural explanation. Nearby, they find tools, not the crude hand axes we expect, but finely crafted blades, polished to a sheen, embedded with tiny crystals that catch the light. The team debates, are these natural formations or the remnants of a forgotten technology? One scientist, Dr. Aisha Patel, a geologist with a knack for spotting anomalies, argues that the crystals could be evidence of early metallurgy, a process we thought impossible for that time. Her colleague, Dr. Thomas Reed, counters that the patterns are likely the result of geological pressure, not human hands. The argument is heated, but it captures the challenge of this search, distinguishing the natural from the artificial when time has blurred the lines. This brings us to the role of plate tectonics. The Earth's crust is a slow, relentless machine, recycling itself over millions of years. Continents drift, mountains rise, and old landscapes are swallowed into the mantle. A civilization from 100,000 years ago would have faced this reality. Their cities, if built on unstable ground, could have been thrust deep underground or destroyed entirely. Yet some materials endure. Quartz, for example, is incredibly resilient, resisting erosion and chemical breakdown. If this society used quartz in their tools or art, we might find it preserved in ancient deposits. In Australia, archaeologists have uncovered quartz beads dated to 65,000 years ago, suggesting a level of craftsmanship we didn't expect. Could similar finds, pushed back further, hint at something greater? Let's paint a vivid picture. Imagine a river valley in what is now East Africa. 100,000 years ago, a settlement thrives along the water's edge, its people building low, sturdy structures of stone and wood. They've learned to channel the river's flow, creating irrigation channels that feed fields of early crops. Their tools are sharp, their pottery glazed with minerals that shimmer in the sun. At night, they gather around fires, mapping the stars with instruments we'd mistake for simple sticks. This is no primitive camp. It's a community with purpose, with knowledge. But a great flood comes, or a drought, and the settlement is abandoned. The river shifts course, burying the site under layers of silt. Millennia later, the sea rises, submerging the valley entirely. Today, it lies beneath the Indian Ocean, its secrets locked away, perhaps forever. Now let's visit another site, this time in what is now Siberia. A team of geologists drills into a permafrost layer, uncovering a strange anomaly. A layer of ash mixed with tiny, polished stones, arranged in a spiral pattern. The stones are quartz, their surfaces etched with faint, repetitive markings. Dr. Patel, leading the expedition, suggests these could be remnants of a ceremonial structure, perhaps an observatory aligned with celestial events. Dr. Patel, Reed, ever the skeptic, argues they're likely glacial deposits, carried and shaped by ice. But the markings are too consistent, too deliberate. The team runs tests, radiocarbon dating, mineral analysis, and finds the layer dates to 95,000 years ago. The stones show signs of heat exposure, as if worked by tools we don't associate with that era. The discovery sparks debate, not just among the team, but across the scientific community. Is this evidence of an advanced society, or just a quirk of nature? Let's explore another clue, the fossil record of plants. If this civilization practiced agriculture, we might find evidence in pollen grains preserved in ancient lake beds in Ethiopia. Researchers have found pollen from plants that seem out of place for 100,000 years ago, species that suggest cultivation, not wild growth. Could these be the remnants of early fields, tended by a people who understood the seasons and the soil? The data is sparse, but it's enough to make us wonder. If they grew crops, they might have built storage systems, irrigation networks, or even terraces, like those seen in later civilizations. These structures, if made of stone, could survive in fragments, buried under desert sands or mountain slopes. Another avenue is the study of ancient caves. Caves are time capsules, preserving artifacts that would decay elsewhere. In a cave in southern China, archaeologists uncover a series of tools, bone needles, polished stone blades, even a small carved figurine that resembles a human figure holding an unknown object. Dated to 90,000 years ago, these finds push the boundaries of what we believe early humans were capable of. The figurine, in particular, intrigues researchers. Its craftsmanship suggests a culture with artistic traditions, perhaps even a written or symbolic language. Dr. Patel sees it as evidence of a complex society, one that valued art and possibly religion. Dr. Reed cautions that it could be an isolated work, not indicative of a broader civilization. But the cave holds more secrets, a layer of charcoal, suggesting controlled fire use, and faint traces of pigments that might have been used for painting or dyeing. Let's consider the role of ice. Glaciers, which covered much of the northern hemisphere 100,000 years ago, could have both destroyed and preserved evidence. A city built in a glacial valley might have been crushed by advancing ice, its fragments scattered across hundreds of miles. But in some cases, ice can act as a preservative, locking artifacts in a frozen embrace. In Antarctica, researchers have found microbial fossils in ice cores, hinting at life in unexpected places. Could similar cores hold traces of human activity, pollen from cultivated plants, ash from fires, or even microscopic tools? The challenge is access. Drilling deep into ancient ice is costly and complex, and we've only scratched the surface. Now imagine a coastal site in what is now the Mediterranean. Divers explore a submerged shelf, 200 feet below the surface, where they find a series of stone alignments, walls perhaps, or the foundations of buildings. The stones are massive, some weighing tons, and their placement suggests deliberate design. Dated to 80,000 years ago, when this area was dry land, the site defies explanation. Dr. Patel argues it could be the remnant of a port or ceremonial center, evidence of a seafaring people. Dr. Reed counters that it's likely a natural formation, shaped by ancient currents. But the divers find something else, a carved stone, its surface etched with symbols that resemble early writing. The discovery sends shockwaves through the archaeological world, prompting new expeditions to search the submerged coasts. The search for such a civilization requires us to think differently. We can't expect to find a buried city with neon signs proclaiming its existence. Instead, we must look for the subtle, the unexpected, a layer of ash that doesn't match known volcanic events, a fossilized bone with marks too precise for a predator's teeth, a stone formation that aligns too perfectly with the solstice. These are the breadcrumbs we follow, knowing that each one could lead to nothing or to everything. The Earth is vast, and our tools, sonar, ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, are only beginning to peel back its layers. Every year, new discoveries push the boundaries of what we believe possible. The question is not just what we've found, but what we've yet to find. Let's reflect on the scale of this challenge. The Earth's surface is 19.7 million square miles, and we've excavated only a tiny fraction. Most archaeological digs focus on known sites, like Mesopotamia or Egypt, where the evidence is obvious. But a civilization from 100,000 years ago would likely be elsewhere, in now submerged lands, in remote deserts, or under layers of sediment we haven't reached. Our technology is improving, but it's still limited. Satellite imagery can spot buried structures, but only if they're near the surface. Sonar can map the ocean floor, but only in shallow waters. Ground-penetrating radar can reveal hidden chambers, but it's expensive and slow. The clues are there, but finding them is like searching for a needle in a haystack the size of a planet. Yet the search continues, driven by curiosity and the tantalizing possibility of rewriting history. In Mongolia, a team uncovers a series of stone tools, their edges honed to a precision that suggests advanced craftsmanship. In Brazil, a cave yields charcoal deposits that hint at controlled fire use 100,000 years ago. In the Indian Ocean, divers find a submerged platform, its stones cut with an accuracy that defies natural explanation. Each discovery is a piece of the puzzle, But the picture remains incomplete. Dr. Patel and her team press on, driven by the belief that the truth is out there, buried in the Earth's ancient layers. Dr. Reed, though skeptical, admits that the anomalies are piling up, challenging the conventional narrative. As we close this chapter, we're left with a sense of possibility. The geological and paleontological records are incomplete, but they're not silent. They speak in whispers of strange artifacts, submerged structures, and anomalies that don't quite fit. Whether these are the echoes of a lost civilization or simply the quirks of a dynamic planet, they challenge us to keep digging, keep questioning. The Earth has guarded its secrets for 100,000 years, but it's ready to share them if only we know where to look. The journey is far from over, and each new find brings us closer to understanding the truth about our planet's hidden past. Let's turn now to the stories that have echoed through time, the myths and legends that whisper of a world long lost. If an advanced civilization thrived 100,000 years ago, its physical traces might have crumbled under the weight of millennia, erased by floods, glaciers, or the slow grind of the Earth's crust. But stories, those intangible threads of human memory, can endure, passed from generation to generation, reshaped yet resilient. Across the globe, from the deserts of Australia to the highlands of Peru, from the islands of Greece to the river valleys of Mesopotamia, ancient tales speak of golden ages, great cities, and cataclysms that swallowed them whole. Could these be mere flights of fancy, or are they distorted memories of a real civilization, one that rose and fell long before our written records began? This is the question we explore now. Can the myths and legends of the world be reinterpreted as historical records, preserving fragments of an advanced society from 100,000 years ago? Imagine a time when the Earth was wilder, its landscapes vast and untamed. Early humans, or perhaps another intelligent species, roamed its plains and forests, their lives shaped by the rhythms of nature. In this world, a civilization emerges, building structures, mastering skills, and weaving a culture so vibrant that its echoes survive in the stories we tell today. These stories, carried across millennia by word of mouth, might hold clues to that lost world. They might not describe skyscrapers or machines, but they could speak of great works, wise teachers, or catastrophic ends, details that, when pieced together, hint at something extraordinary. Let's begin with one of the most famous legends, Atlantis. The Greek philosopher Plato, writing 2,400 years ago, told of a great island nation, advanced in knowledge and power, that flourished beyond the Pillars of Hercules before sinking beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune. Scholars have debated Atlantis for centuries. Some see it as a fable, a moral tale about hubris. Others believe it describes a real place, perhaps the Minoan civilization on Crete, destroyed by a volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE. But what if Plato's story points to something far older? He placed Atlantis 9,000 years before his time. But what if the story's roots go back further, to a memory of a coastal civilization submerged 100,000 years ago when sea levels rose? The details are vague: great wealth, advanced technology, a sudden end. But the persistence of the tale across cultures suggests it might carry a deeper truth. Consider the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known written stories, dating back over 4,000 years. It speaks of a time before a great flood, when gods and men lived in a world of wonders. The flood story appears in many cultures: the biblical Noah, the Mesopotamian Utnapishtim, the Hindu Manu. These tales share a common thread: a golden age disrupted by a deluge that reshaped the world. Could they be echoes of a real event, perhaps a catastrophic flooding of coastal civilizations as the Ice Age ended? Geological evidence confirms massive sea level rises around 12,000 years ago. But what if earlier floods, less documented, wiped out an even older society? The oral traditions of indigenous peoples like the Aboriginal Australians speak of a time when the land was different, when great waters changed the shape of the continent. These stories, some dated to over 40,000 years, suggest a collective memory of ancient cataclysms. Let's explore another example, the Dogon people of Mali. Their oral traditions, passed down for millennia, include detailed knowledge of the Sirius star system, including its invisible companion star, Sirius B, which modern astronomers only confirmed in the 19th century. The Dogon claim this knowledge came from ancient visitors, beings they call the Nommo, who taught them astronomy and other sciences. Could this be a memory of an advanced civilization, one that understood the stars in ways we associate with much later cultures? The Dogon stories are rich with details, amphibious beings, star maps, cosmic cycles that seem out of place for a supposedly primitive people. Skeptics argue these tales were influenced by modern contact. But what if they preserve fragments of a far older knowledge system? In South America, the Inca and their predecessors told of Viracocha, a creative figure who brought civilization to humanity, teaching them agriculture, building, and governance. The ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia, with its precisely cut stones weighing tons, suggest engineering skills that baffle modern archaeologists. Dated to around 500 CE, Pumapunku is far too recent to be our lost civilization. But could its builders have inherited techniques from a much older culture? Oral traditions in the Andes speak of a time before the sun grew dim, a golden age of great builders. These stories, carried through countless generations, might reflect a distant memory of a society that mastered stonework on a scale we can scarcely imagine. Let's travel to India, where the ancient texts of the Mahabharata and Ramayana describe flying machines called vimanas, cities of gold and weapons of devastating power. These epics, written down thousands of years ago, claim to recount events from a far older era. The descriptions of vimanas, aircraft powered by mysterious energies, sound like mythology. But what if they preserve a kernel of truth? Could an advanced society have developed technologies we associate with modernity, only for their knowledge to be lost, encoded in stories of gods and heroes? The Vedas, even older, speak of a time when sages wielded knowledge of the cosmos, mathematics, and the elements. These texts, passed orally for millennia before being written, could be echoes of a civilization that understood the universe in ways we're only now rediscovering. In Australia, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories tell of the rainbow serpent, a creator being who shaped the land and taught humanity its laws. These stories, some of the oldest in the world, describe a time when the world was young, when great beings walked the earth and left their marks in the landscape. Geologists confirm that Australia's landscape was dramatically altered by climate shifts tens of thousands of years ago. Could the Dreamtime preserve memories of a people who thrived in a greener, wetter Australia, building structures or harnessing resources in ways we can't fathom? The precision of their star knowledge, used for navigation across vast deserts, suggests a sophistication that challenges our assumptions about early humans. Let's consider the Pacific. Polynesian oral traditions speak of Mu, a lost continent swallowed by the sea. Similar to Atlantis, Mu is described as a land of advanced people, skilled navigators who mapped the stars and sailed vast distances. The Lapita people, ancestors of the Polynesians, left pottery and tools dated to 3,000 years ago, but their navigational skills suggest a much older heritage. Could their stories of Mu reflect a civilization from 100,000 years ago, its coastal cities submerged as the oceans rose? The Polynesians' ability to cross thousands of miles of open water with nothing but the stars to guide them hints at an ancient knowledge system, one that might have roots in a forgotten past. Now imagine a storyteller 100,000 years ago, sitting by a fire in a bustling settlement. The night sky glitters above, and the community gathers to hear tales of their ancestors, great builders, star watchers, masters of the land. The storyteller speaks of a golden city, its towers gleaming under the sun, its people wise and powerful. But a great wave came, or a fire from the sky, and the city was lost. The story is passed down, generation after generation, each retelling adding new layers, new embellishments. By the time it reaches us, it's a myth, a legend, its truth buried under metaphor. Yet the core remains, a memory of something great, something lost. Let's explore how these stories survive. Oral traditions are remarkably resilient. In cultures without writing, stories are sacred, memorized with precision. Anthropologists have documented Aboriginal Australian songs that accurately describe landscapes submerged 20,000 years ago. In Africa, the griot tradition preserves histories stretching back centuries, perhaps millennia. If a civilization existed 100,000 years ago, its stories could have been carried forward, reshaped by each culture that inherited them. The common themes, golden ages, great floods, wise beings, suggest a shared memory, fragmented but persistent. But there's a challenge. Myths are slippery. They evolve, blending fact with imagination. A real event, a city destroyed by a tsunami, might become a tale of divine wrath. A brilliant inventor might be remembered as a god. To peel back the layers, we must look for patterns. Flood myths appear in over 500 cultures worldwide, from the Mari to the Maya. Stories of star teachers like the Dogon's Nomo or the Sumerian Anunnaki recur across continents. These patterns suggest something more than coincidence. Could they be the fossilized remains of a real history encoded in narrative? Let's imagine a scene. A group of elders in a lush valley, 100,000 years ago, gathers to tell the story of their people's origins. They speak of a great city by the sea, its walls carved with symbols of the stars. They describe machines that moved without animals, powered by the Earth's own energy. The children listen, wide-eyed, as the elders warn of a time when the sky wept and the land shook, and the city was no more. This story, repeated over countless fires, travels with the people as they migrate, adapting to new lands, new languages. By the time it reaches ancient Greece, it's the tale of Atlantis. In Mesopotamia, it's the flood of Utnapishtim. In India, it's the Vimanas of the gods. Now let's bring in the experts. Dr. Leela Mwangi, an anthropologist specializing in oral traditions, argues that myths are more than stories, they're history in disguise. She points to the Klamath people of Oregon, whose stories of a volcanic eruption match geological evidence from 7,600 years ago. If such accuracy can survive thousands of years, why not tens of thousands? Dr. Mwangi suggests that the recurring flood motif could reflect real events from the end of the Ice Age or even earlier cataclysms. But Dr. Robert Klein, a historian, is skeptical. He argues that myths are symbolic, not literal, shaped by human fears and dreams. Yet even he admits that the global prevalence of certain themes, lost civilizations, great floods, suggests a shared experience, perhaps rooted in a distant reality. Let's consider the possibility of a specific event. Geological records show a period of rapid climate change around 100,000 years ago, with temperature spikes and sea level fluctuations. Could a civilization have been caught in such a shift? A coastal city, thriving with trade and technology, could have been submerged, its people scattered, their knowledge preserved only in stories. The survivors, rebuilding in new lands, would carry the tale, each generation adding its own flavor. By the time writing emerged, the story was no longer history but legend. Another angle, the role of symbolism. Myths often use metaphors to convey complex ideas. A flying machine might describe a fast-moving vehicle or a concept of mobility we don't understand. A god might be a leader, a scientist, or an inventor whose skills seem divine. The Aboriginal rainbow serpent could symbolize a river harnessed for power, its creation the irrigation of fields. Decoding these symbols requires imagination, but also rigor, cross-referencing with geological and archaeological data. Let's visit another culture, the Ainu of Japan. Their oral traditions speak of a time when the land was connected to other places. Before the waters rose, they describe kamui, spirit-like beings who taught fishing, weaving, and star navigation. Could these be memories of a sophisticated people? Perhaps seafarers who mapped the Pacific 100,000 years ago. The Ainu stories, like those of the Polynesians, suggest a deep knowledge of the sea and stars, skills that might trace back to an ancient civilization. Now imagine the challenges of preservation. Without writing, stories rely on human memory, which is both powerful and fallible. A single generation's error can transform a historical event into a myth, yet some details persist with startling clarity. The Hopi people of North America tell of the Ant people, beings who saved humanity during a great catastrophe. The story aligns with flood myths elsewhere, and the Hopi's precise astronomical knowledge suggests a heritage of advanced observation. Could their tales, like others, be fragments of a lost civilization's history? Let's reflect on the global picture. From the Norse tales of Asgard to the Egyptian stories of Osiris, myths describe a time of greatness followed by loss. The consistency is striking. Advanced knowledge, catastrophic ends, survivors carrying the story forward. If a civilization existed 100,000 years ago, its downfall, perhaps due to climate change, war, or disaster, would have scattered its people, their knowledge preserved in oral traditions that became myths. As we close this chapter, we're left with a tapestry of stories, woven from countless voices across time. They speak of lost worlds, great floods, and beings who shaped humanity's path. Whether these are metaphors or memories, they challenge us to rethink our history. The myths and legends of the world are not just stories, they're potential windows into a past we've forgotten, a civilization that might have changed the course of human destiny. The search for truth continues, guided by the voices of our ancestors, echoing across 100,000 years. Imagine a civilization 100,000 years ago, not of scattered tribes wielding crude stone tools, but a society pulsing with ingenuity, crafting technologies that rival our own in sophistication, yet tailored to a world we can barely comprehend. If such an advanced society existed, what marvels might they have created? How would their innovations, born in a time of glaciers, vast savannas, and untamed rivers, differ from the steel and silicon of our modern age? Could they have harnessed the forces of nature, built machines, or even unlocked secrets of the universe that we're only now rediscovering? This is the question we explore now. What technological wonders might a civilization from 100,000 years ago have developed, and why have their traces vanished from the Earth? Let's set the stage. The Earth 100,000 years ago is a planet of extremes. Ice sheets cover much of the northern hemisphere, while tropical forests and grasslands dominate the south. Sea levels are lower, exposing vast coastal plains where early humans, or perhaps another intelligent species, thrive. In this world, a civilization emerges, not with skyscrapers or computers, but with technologies suited to their environment, tools, structures, and systems that reflect a deep understanding of their world. These people are not primitive, they are innovators, solving problems with creativity and precision. Their advancements might not look like ours, but they are no less remarkable. To understand their achievements, we must shed our modern biases and imagine technology through the lens of a different time. First, consider the materials they might have used. Today we build with steel, concrete, and plastic, but 100,000 years ago, the raw materials would have been stone, wood, bone, and perhaps metals or organic compounds we've overlooked. Let's start with stone, the most durable of their potential resources. We know early humans crafted flint tools with remarkable precision. But what if this civilization took it further? Imagine quarries where they shaped massive blocks of granite or basalt, not just for shelters but for complex structures, observatories, dams, or even aqueducts. The ruins of Göbekli Tepe, dated to 11,000 years ago, showed T-shaped pillars weighing tons, carved with intricate designs. If such feats were possible then, what could a civilization 100,000 years ago have achieved? Picture stone machines, gears and levers carved with such accuracy that they function like clockwork, powered by water or human strength. These mechanisms could have lifted heavy loads, ground grain, or even aligned with the stars for navigation or ritual. Now let's explore metallurgy. Conventional archaeology places the earliest metalworking around 7,000 years ago. with copper smelting in the Middle East. But what if an earlier society discovered metals sooner? Imagine a people who learned to extract copper, or even iron from surface deposits, heating them in clay furnaces fueled by charcoal. They might have forged tools, blades, chisels, or even delicate instruments far sharper and stronger than stone. These metals could have been alloyed with tin or other minerals, creating bronze-like materials for weapons, ornaments, or machinery. Over 100,000 years, most metal artifacts would corrode into dust, especially in humid or acidic environments, leaving little for us to find. But what if some survived, encased in sediment or preserved in arid deserts? A single metal artifact dated to 100,000 years ago would rewrite history, suggesting a technological leap we've never imagined. Let's consider energy. Today we rely on fossil fuels, electricity, and nuclear power, but an ancient civilization would have turned to the forces around them: water, wind, or the earth itself. Picture a settlement along a roaring river, where engineers design water wheels, not just to grind grain but to power larger systems, perhaps looms for weaving or bellows for smelting. These wheels, made of wood and stone, would decay over millennia, but their foundations might remain, buried under riverbeds or mistaken for natural rock formations. Or imagine geothermal energy, harnessed from hot springs or volcanic vents. In what is now Iceland or Yellowstone, a civilization could have tapped into the Earth's heat, using it to warm homes, cure materials, or even drive simple machines. Such systems would leave faint traces, altered soil chemistry, unusual ash deposits that we might overlook without knowing what to seek. What about biotechnology? Our modern world is only beginning to explore bioengineering, growing materials from living organisms. But what if this civilization mastered organic technologies? Imagine structures woven from living vines, reinforced with resins that harden like concrete. These grown buildings would blend seamlessly with the environment, decomposing after abandonment, leaving no trace. Or picture crops engineered through selective breeding, producing food so efficiently that they supported dense populations. In Ethiopia, pollen from 100,000-year-old lake beds shows traces of plants that seem out of place, suggesting early cultivation. Could these be the remnants of fields tended by a society that understood genetics in a rudimentary but effective way? Their tools might have been organic too: bone needles, plant fiber ropes, or even enzymes used for processing materials, all lost to decay. Let's imagine communication. We rely on writing, radio, and digital signals. But what if this civilization developed other methods? Picture a system of visual signals using polished quartz to reflect sunlight across vast distances, like an ancient telegraph. Or consider sound: drums, horns, or even tuned stones that resonate at specific frequencies, carrying messages through valleys or across plains. In southern Africa, archaeologists have found bone flutes dated to 60,000 years ago, suggesting musical traditions. What if these were more than instruments, but tools for long-range communication? A more speculative leap: what if they explored forms of thought-based communication, using rituals or substances to enhance perception? Such practices would leave no physical evidence, but their legacy might survive in myths of telepathic gods or sages. Now, let's envision their engineering feats. Imagine a city built on a coastal plain, its streets laid out in a grid, aligned with the solstices. The buildings are low, made of stone and hardened clay, with roofs of woven reeds. Canals channel water from a nearby river, irrigating fields and powering mills. At the city's heart stands a massive structure, an observatory, its stone pillars carved with star charts, tracking the movements of the heavens. This isn't fantasy, it's an extension of what we know later cultures achieved. The builders of Stonehenge, 5,000 years ago, aligned their stones with celestial events. A civilization 100,000 years ago could have done the same on a grander scale. Their works now buried under sediment or submerged by rising seas. But why haven't we found these marvels? Time is a relentless eraser. Stone weathers, wood rots, and metal corrodes. Organic materials, wood, fibers, even bioengineered structures would vanish within centuries unless preserved in rare conditions like bogs or permafrost. Even stone structures could be mistaken for natural formations, especially if eroded or buried. The oceans, which rose dramatically as the Ice Age ended, swallowed vast coastal regions where early civilizations likely thrived. Submerged sites like those off India's Gulf of Cambay, with possible stone structures dated to 9,500 years ago, hint at what might lie beneath. If a civilization built along ancient shorelines 100,000 years ago, their cities could be 400 feet underwater, beyond the reach of most archaeological tools. Let's bring in the experts. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, an engineer specializing in ancient technologies, argues that we underestimate early humans. He points to the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device that computed planetary movements with gearwork. If such complexity existed then, why not earlier? Dr. Gupta imagines a civilization 100,000 years ago, using simple machines, levers, pulleys, gears, to build structures or process resources. These devices, likely made of wood or bone, would leave little trace. But Dr. Elena Voss, an archaeologist, cautions against speculation. She argues that the lack of durable artifacts, metal, ceramics, suggests no such civilization existed. Yet she admits, our excavations cover only a fraction of the Earth's surface, and anomalies like the Blombos cave engravings, with their precise patterns, hint at unexpected sophistication. Let's paint a scene. Picture a workshop in a settlement, nestled in a fertile valley. Craftsmen shape quartz crystals into lenses, using them to focus sunlight for cutting or signaling. Nearby, women weave plant fibers into textiles, dyed with pigments from crushed minerals. A water wheel turns steadily, driving a system of wooden gears that pound grain into flour. The air hums with activity, hammers striking stone, voices coordinating tasks, the faint hum of a tuned instrument, signaling the start of a ritual. This is a society of makers, their technology integrated with the land, their innovations born from necessity and curiosity. But a great flood comes, or an earthquake, and the settlement is abandoned. The river buries it in silt, and millennia later, the sea claims it entirely. Now consider astronomy. A civilization 100,000 years ago would have lived under a pristine night sky, unpolluted by light. They could have mapped the stars with precision, using stone alignments or portable tools to track seasons and navigate. In Australia, Aboriginal star knowledge passed down for tens of thousands of years rivals modern astronomy in its accuracy. Could an earlier society have built observatories, not unlike Stonehenge but larger, their stones now scattered or buried? Such structures would be hard to distinguish from natural rock formations, especially after millennia of erosion. Let's explore another possibility: energy storage. Today we use batteries, but an ancient civilization might have used mechanical systems, counterweights, springs, or even water reservoirs to store energy. Picture a tower where water is pumped to a high reservoir during the day, then released at night to power mills or lights. These systems, made of stone and wood, would decay, but their foundations might remain, mistaken for natural terraces. In Peru, the Inca used similar hydraulic systems centuries ago. Could an earlier society have done the same, on a grander scale? The ethical implications are profound. If we rediscover such technologies, what would it mean? A sustainable, organic-based system could teach us how to live in harmony with the earth, avoiding the environmental damage of our industrial age. But advanced tools, say weapons or energy sources, could pose risks if misunderstood. Dr. Gupta warns that rediscovering lost knowledge requires responsibility, as it could reshape our society in unpredictable ways. Voss counters that the greater risk is romanticizing the past, projecting our desires onto ambiguous evidence. Let's imagine another scene: a coastal city, 100,000 years ago, thrives under a crimson sunset. Its people have mastered glassmaking, using sand and fire to create lenses for signaling or tools for cutting. Their ships, made of reeds and sealed with resin, sail along ancient coasts, trading obsidian and shells. At night, they light their city with oil lamps, the flames fueled by rendered animal fat or plant oils. This is a civilization of light and movement. Its technology is practical yet elegant, but a tsunami strikes, and the city is submerged. Today, divers find only scattered stones, their purpose forgotten. The search for these marvels is daunting. Our tools, sonar, radar, satellites, are powerful but limited. Most archaeological digs focus on recent sites, leaving vast areas unexplored. Yet every year, new finds challenge our assumptions. A polished stone tool in Kenya, dated to 100,000 years ago, shows wear patterns suggesting mechanical use. A submerged platform in the Mediterranean, with precise cuts, hints at ancient engineering. These clues are faint, but they urge us to keep looking, to imagine what might be possible. As we close this chapter, we're left with a vision of a civilization that didn't just survive, but thrived, creating wonders suited to their world. Their technologies, stone machines, organic structures, star-guided navigation, might be lost, but their legacy lingers in the questions we ask. The Earth holds their secrets, waiting for us to uncover them, to marvel at what humanity, or something like it, achieved 100,000 years ago. Let's turn our gaze to the relationship between an advanced civilization from 100,000 years ago and the natural world that cradled it. If such a society existed, how did it interact with the Earth's rivers, forests, and skies? Did it master its environment with ingenuity, bending nature to its will, or did it live in harmony, leaving only whispers of its presence? And what cataclysms, natural or self-inflicted, might have brought its downfall, erasing its legacy from the landscape? This is the question we explore now. How did this lost civilization engage with its environment, mastering it or succumbing to its fury? And what lessons can we draw for our own fragile bond with the planet? Let's begin with their mastery of resources. Imagine a settlement along a mighty river, its waters teeming with fish, and its banks rich with clay, reeds, and fertile soil. The people here have learned to channel the river's flow, building canals to irrigate fields of wild grains or early crops selected through generations of careful cultivation. These canals, lined with stone or hardened earth, are feats of engineering, ensuring food security for a growing population. The fields are not haphazard, but meticulously planned, with terraces carved into hillsides to catch rainwater, much like those seen in later Andean cultures. These terraces, if built of stone, might survive as faint outlines, mistaken for natural formations after millennia of erosion. In Ethiopia, pollen from 100,000-year-old lake beds suggests cultivation of plants that seem out of place for the time, grasses or tubers that hint at early agriculture. Could these be the remnants of fields tended by a society that understood the seasons and the soil, a people who turned the wild into a garden? Now consider their use of energy. Today, we rely on fossil fuels and electricity, but this civilization would have turned to the forces around them: water, wind, or the Earth's own heat. Picture water wheels along a river, their wooden blades turning steadily, not just grinding grain but powering looms for weaving or forges for shaping tools. These wheels, crafted from wood and reinforced with stone, would decay over millennia, but their foundations, stone platforms or channels, might linger, buried under riverbeds or mistaken for natural rock formations. In volcanic regions, like what is now Iceland, Ethiopia, or Yellowstone, they could have harnessed geothermal vents, using the Earth's heat to warm homes, cure materials, or even drive simple machines. Such systems would leave subtle traces, altered soil chemistry, ash layers with unusual compositions that we might overlook without advanced analysis. Ice core data from Greenland, dated to 100,000 years ago, shows spikes in methane and mineral deposits. Most scientists attribute these to volcanic activity or cosmic events. But what if some reflect human activity, burning biomass, smelting ores, or altering landscapes? The evidence is faint, open to interpretation, but it's there, waiting for us to connect the dots. Let's explore their impact on the landscape itself. This civilization might have reshaped the earth, clearing forests for farmland, building roads to connect settlements, or constructing dams to control rivers. Picture a network of paths paved with packed earth or flat stones, stretching across continents, linking villages in a web of trade and communication. These roads, now eroded or buried under sediment, could be mistaken for natural ridges or glacial deposits. In the Amazon, archaeologists have found terra preta, human-made fertile soil, dated to thousands of years ago, suggesting ancient land management. Could similar practices, far older, exist in now submerged coastal plains or arid deserts that were once lush? If this society altered landscapes on a large scale, they might have triggered unintended consequences: deforestation leading to erosion, irrigation causing soil salinization, or overgrazing depleting grasslands. Such changes could have weakened their resilience, making them vulnerable to natural disasters or their own mistakes. Now let's consider those disasters. The Earth 100,000 years ago was a volatile place, with climate swings, volcanic eruptions, and seismic upheavals. A civilization thriving in a coastal region could have been obliterated by a tsunami, its cities swallowed by rising seas as glaciers melted. Geological records show rapid sea level rises around the end of the Ice Age, around 12,000 years ago, submerging vast lands where early humans likely thrived. Sites like the Gulf of Cambay off India's coast, with submerged structures dated to 9,500 years ago, hint at what might lie beneath the waves. A civilization from 100,000 years ago, built on similar lowlands, could be 400 feet underwater, its stone walls, canals, and homes hidden from our current tools. Divers exploring these depths find tantalizing clues, stone alignments, possible tools. But the ocean guards its secrets fiercely, and our technology is only beginning to catch up. Volcanic activity is another possibility. The Toba supereruption around 74,000 years ago spewed ash across the globe, potentially causing a volcanic winter that decimated populations. If our civilization existed before this event, it might have been shattered, its survivors scattered, their knowledge preserved only in fragmented stories. Ice cores from Antarctica show ash layers from this period, mixed with unusual minerals that could, in theory, include traces of human activity, worked stone, burnt wood, or processed materials. But time blurs these clues, making them hard to distinguish from natural debris. Imagine a city buried under layers of ash, its stone structures cracked by the weight of time, its people's story reduced to a myth of fire from the sky. Let's imagine a specific catastrophe. Picture a thriving city in what is now the Mediterranean, 100,000 years ago, its streets bustling with traders, artisans, and farmers. The people have built a dam to control a nearby river, ensuring water for crops and homes. Their fields bloom with grains, their canals gleam under the sun. But an earthquake strikes, its tremors cracking the dam and unleashing a flood that engulfs the city. Homes collapse, fields are swept away, and the survivors flee, carrying tales of a great deluge. Over millennia, the story evolves, becoming the flood myths of Noah, Utnapishtim, or the Hindu Manu, passed down through countless generations. The city itself is buried under layers of silt, then submerged as sea levels rise. Today, divers find only scattered stones, their purpose forgotten, their story a whisper in the myths of later peoples. Could this civilization have caused its own downfall? If they cleared forests for farmland or burned biomass for fuel, they might have triggered environmental changes, desertification, soil depletion, or local climate shifts. Imagine a people who mined minerals for tools, leaving pits that collapsed into sinkholes, or diverted rivers, causing droughts downstream. These actions, though innovative, could have destabilized their world, much as we fear doing today. In Mesopotamia, later societies fell when irrigation salted their fields, turning fertile lands to dust. Our civilization might have faced similar challenges. Their ambition outpacing their understanding of the Earth's limits. Ice cores from 100,000 years ago show carbon spikes that could, in theory, reflect large-scale burning forests, cleared fires stoked for industry. These traces are subtle, easily dismissed as natural, but they urge us to look closer. Let's paint a vivid scene. It's midday in a settlement, nestled in a lush valley, surrounded by rolling hills. The air hums with activity. Women weave reeds into baskets, their fingers swift, while men carve stone blocks for a new canal. Nearby, children learn to plant seeds, their hands guided by elders who know the soil's secrets. A water wheel turns steadily, its wooden blades splashing in the river, powering a mill that grinds grain into flour. The people work in harmony with the land, their canals and fields a testament to their skill. But the river is unpredictable, and a season of heavy rains looms on the horizon. The elders debate reinforcing the canal walls, unaware that a distant fault line is stirring, its tremors building. This is a society at its peak, yet fragile, its fate tied to the earth it seeks to master. Now, let's bring in the experts. Dr. Elena Rivera, a paleoecologist specializing in human-environment interactions, argues that early humans were capable of significant environmental impact. She points to evidence of controlled burns in Australia, dated to 50,000 years ago, suggesting deliberate land management to encourage game or clear fields. A civilization 100,000 years ago could have done more, building terraces, diverting rivers, or cultivating crops on a large scale. Their traces might hide in pollen records, soil layers, or faunal remains, waiting for us to find them. But Dr. Thomas Blake, a geologist, urges caution. He argues that natural processes, erosion, sedimentation, volcanic activity, would erase most evidence of such activity, and anomalies like the Ethiopian pollen could be natural variations, not human work. Yet he concedes, our understanding of ancient climates is incomplete, and subtle human impacts might lurk in the data, undetected. Let's explore adaptation, the flip side of mastery. This civilization might have been masters of resilience, building homes that withstand floods, or designing crops that thrive in drought. Imagine floating villages on lake shores, their platforms woven from reeds, rising and falling with the water's ebb. These structures, organic and impermanent, would leave no trace after centuries, but they would have allowed the people to weather seasonal floods or picture seed banks stored in clay jars sealed with resin, preserving food through lean years. Such practices would leave faint clues, pollen in sediment, charred seeds in caves, but they suggest a people who understood their environment's volatility. The Sand people of southern Africa, with their deep knowledge of plants and seasons, offer a modern parallel. Could our civilization have been even more advanced, their adaptations lost to time's relentless march? Let's consider the role of animals. If this society domesticated species like dogs, goats, or even fish, we might find clues in the fossil record, bones with signs of selective breeding, or unusual concentrations of certain species in specific sites. In Israel, a 100,000-year-old site shows evidence of shellfish harvesting, suggesting deliberate resource management. Could this civilization have tamed fish in artificial ponds, herded animals across managed plains, or even bred birds for feathers or food? Such practices would reshape ecosystems, leaving traces in soil layers, faunal remains, or pollen records, though time might scatter them beyond recognition. Imagine a settlement where domesticated dogs guard fields, their bones later found in a cave, their presence hinting at a society that shaped its environment with purpose. Another catastrophe to consider: disease. A dense population, supported by agriculture or trade, could have been vulnerable to pandemics. Picture a plague sweeping through a city, its people unprepared for a pathogen spread by close contact or tainted water. The sick fall quickly, markets empty, and fields lie fallow. The survivors scatter, their knowledge fragmented, their story reduced to warnings of a cursed time. The fossil record rarely preserves disease, but sudden population drops in ancient human remains Gaps in the archaeological record could hint at such events. If this civilization was interconnected, trading across continents, a disease could have spread rapidly, much like the Black Death millennia later. Let's imagine another scene, this time on a coastal plain under a crimson sunset. The city is a marvel, its stone walls rising from the earth, its canals gleaming like ribbons of silver. Fishermen return with nets full of fish, their boats woven from reeds and sealed with pitch. Traders barter shells for obsidian, their voices rising in the bustling market. At night, the people gather in a plaza, their faces lit by oil lamps fueled by plant oils, as a storyteller recounts the tale of their ancestors' first harvest. But the sea is restless, its waves growing stronger each year. A storm looms, one that will reshape the coast and bury the city underwater. Today, divers find only scattered stones, their purpose forgotten, their story a whisper in the myths of later peoples, tales of a lost world swallowed by the deep. The lessons for us are stark and urgent. This civilization, if it existed, shows the power and peril of mastering nature. Their innovations, canals, crops, energy systems mirror our own ambitions, from dams to genetic engineering. But their potential collapse warns of overreach, of pushing the earth beyond its limits. If they altered their environment too drastically, clearing forests, mining minerals, or diverting rivers, they might have sown the seeds of their own destruction, a cautionary tale for our time. Dr. Rivera sees hope in their sustainable practices, like terraced fields or organic tools, as models for our future. She imagines a society that worked with nature, not against it, offering lessons for our climate-challenged world. Dr. Blake, more skeptical, warns that their erasure reminds us how fragile even advanced societies can be, urging us to tread lightly on the earth, to learn from their mistakes before we repeat them. Let's consider one final angle: resilience through diversity. This civilization might have thrived by adapting to varied environments, coastal plains, inland forests, high plateaus. Each settlement could have developed unique practices, sharing knowledge through trade. A coastal village might build floating homes, while an inland community carves terraces into hills. This diversity would make the civilization robust, able to survive local disasters. But a global event, a super eruption, a rapid climate shift could overwhelm even the most adaptable society, scattering its people and erasing its achievements. The Aboriginal Australians, with their 60,000-year-old traditions, show how diverse adaptations can endure. Could our civilization have been similar, its legacy fragmented but preserved in the practices of its descendants? As we close this chapter, we're left with a vision of a civilization that danced with nature, sometimes leading, sometimes following, but always entwined with the earth's rhythms. Their mastery of the environment was their strength, from canals that fed their fields to energy systems that lit their nights. But their vulnerability to nature's fury, floods, quakes, or plagues, might have been their undoing, leaving only faint traces in sediment, pollen, or stone. Their story challenges us to rethink our own relationship with the planet, to ask how we can harness its gifts without inviting catastrophe. The earth holds their secrets, waiting for us to uncover them, to learn from their triumphs and tragedies, and to build a future that endures beyond our time. As we stand at the edge of this journey, having traversed the vast expanse of 100,000 years, we find ourselves not at an end, but at a crossroads of wonder and responsibility. The hypothesis of an advanced civilization thriving in humanity's deep past has taken us through the whispers of ancient stones, the echoes of forgotten myths, the ingenuity of imagined technologies, the pulse of vibrant societies, and the scars of environmental triumphs and tragedies. We've explored the possibility that our ancestors, or perhaps another intelligent species, built a world as complex and ambitious as our own, only to see it vanish beneath the relentless tides of time. Now, as we conclude, we must ask, what does this mean for us today? How does the shadow of a lost civilization reshape our understanding of history, our place in the universe, and our path forward? This is the question we ponder now. What are the reflections and possibilities that emerge from this ancient mystery, and how can they guide our future? Let's step back and consider the tapestry we've woven. We began with a bold idea that 100,000 years ago, a civilization might have risen, defying the traditional timeline of human progress. We scoured the earth for clues, geological anomalies like submerged structures off Yonaguni or pollen traces in Ethiopian lakebeds, suggesting early agriculture. We listened to myths, Atlantis, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories that hint at golden ages and cataclysmic ends. We imagined technologies, stone machines, organic structures, star-guided navigation that could have rivaled our own in ingenuity, if not in form. We envisioned a society of councils, artisans, and storytellers, living in harmony or hierarchy, their daily lives a blend of work, art, and ritual. And we confronted the possibility of their downfall, floods, quakes, or self-inflicted wounds that left only fragments for us to find. Each chapter of this journey has challenged us to rethink what we know, to question the boundaries of possibility, and to look deeper into the Earth's ancient layers. What does this mean for our understanding of history? If such a civilization existed, it forces us to rewrite the story of humanity. The traditional narrative that civilization began 12,000 years ago with agriculture and cities becomes a mere chapter in a much longer saga. Perhaps our progress was not a straight line but a cycle. With rises and falls we've forgotten. The Blombos cave engravings dated to 100,000 years ago suggest symbolic thought far earlier than we expected. Could they be the remnants of a broader culture, one that spanned continents? The submerged structures in the Gulf of Cambay, dated to 9,500 years ago, hint at lost coastal worlds. If we push the timeline back further, we might find that humanity, or another species, achieved greatness long before we thought possible. This idea humbles us, reminding us that our achievements are not the first, nor perhaps the greatest in the Earth's long history. But the absence of definitive proof, the smoking gun of a buried city, or an unmistakable artifact, keeps us grounded. Time is a brutal editor, erasing wood, corroding metal, and submerging stone. The Earth's dynamic forces, plate tectonics, erosion, rising seas, have hidden much of what might have been. Yet the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Every year, new discoveries push back the boundaries of our knowledge. Göbekli Tepe, with its 11,000-year-old pillars, showed us that hunter-gatherers could build monuments. Future finds, perhaps a submerged city, a preserved tool, or a deciphered symbol, could confirm our hypothesis or reshape it entirely. The search itself is a testament to our curiosity, our drive to uncover the truth, no matter how deeply buried. Let's reflect on the implications for our present. If an advanced civilization rose and fell 100,000 years ago, what can we learn from their story? Their technologies, perhaps sustainable, organic, or star-guided, offer models for our own challenges. Imagine a society that powered its homes with geothermal heat or grew structures from living plants. Such innovations could inspire us to rethink our reliance on fossil fuels and concrete, to seek harmony with the earth rather than dominance. Their governance, whether egalitarian councils or structured hierarchies, might teach us about balancing cooperation with authority, community with ambition. Their rituals, binding people through shared stories and celebrations, remind us of the power of connection in a fractured world, and their potential collapse, whether from floods, plagues, or environmental overreach, warns us of our own fragility, urging us to tread lightly on a planet that can outlast us. Picture a scene from this lost world, one last glimpse before we turn to our own time. It's twilight in a coastal city, 100,000 years ago. Stone walls rise from the earth, their surfaces carved with spiraling patterns. Canals reflect the fading sun, carrying water to fields of swaying grains. Families gather in a plaza, their faces lit by oil lamps, as a storyteller recounts the tale of their ancestors' first journey across the sea. Children listen, wide-eyed, while elders nod, their wisdom anchoring the moment. The air is alive with music, flutes, drums, the hum of voices in harmony. This is a society at its zenith, vibrant and connected, unaware that a great wave or a shifting climate looms on the horizon. Their story, though lost to us, lives in the myths they left behind, in the faint traces we're only beginning to uncover. Now let's bring in the voices of those who've guided us. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the archaeologist who dared to question the timeline, sees this hypothesis as a call to action. She urges us to keep digging, to use new tools, sonar, satellites, DNA analysis, to probe the Earth's hidden layers. The Blombos beads, the Yonaguni structures, the pollen anomalies, these are breadcrumbs, she says, leading us to a truth that could redefine our past. But Dr. Michael Carter, ever the skeptic, reminds us to temper imagination with evidence. He acknowledges the anomalies, but cautions against building castles on shifting sands. Yet even he admits that our picture of the past is incomplete, and each new find, whether a cave painting or a submerged wall, chips away at our certainties. What about the future? If we confirm this civilization's existence, it could spark a renaissance of discovery. New technologies might uncover submerged cities or decode ancient symbols, revealing knowledge we thought lost. Their sustainable practices could guide us toward a greener world, while their mistakes overreaching, disrupting ecosystems could warn us to avoid their fate. But beyond the practical, this story touches something deeper, our sense of wonder, our connection to the past. It reminds us that we are part of a continuum, that our ancestors, however distant, dreamed and built as we do. Their story is ours, a thread in the tapestry of human striving. Let's consider the ethical weight of this search. Rediscovering a lost civilization would be a triumph, but it comes with responsibility. Their knowledge, whether of energy, agriculture, or social bonds, could reshape our world, for better or worse. If they wielded advanced technologies like weapons or energy sources, we'd need to approach them with caution, learning from their successes and failures. Dr. Vasquez sees hope in their potential harmony with nature, a model for sustainable living. Dr. Carter warns that romanticizing the past could blind us to its complexities, urging us to seek truth, not fantasy. Now imagine a moment of rediscovery. A team of divers, exploring the Indian Ocean, finds a submerged city. Stone walls, canals, artifacts preserved in anoxic mud. The world watches, breathless, as cameras reveal carvings of stars and ships, tools unlike any we've seen. Scientists decode symbols, revealing a language that speaks of trade, rituals, and a great flood. This find, if it comes, would be more than evidence. It would be a bridge to our ancestors, a reminder that we are not the first to reach for greatness. It would challenge us to rethink our place in the cosmos, to ask whether we are unique or part of a cycle of rise and fall. But even without such a find, the journey itself is transformative. The act of questioning, of imagining, of searching for truth pushes us forward. It reminds us that history is not a closed book, but a living story, one we're still writing. The myths of Atlantis, the anomalies in ice cores, the patterns in ancient caves, they urge us to keep looking, to keep asking. What else lies hidden? What other civilizations might have risen and fallen, their stories waiting in the Earth's embrace? This hypothesis is not just about the past. It's about our future, about the choices we make to preserve or destroy, to connect or divide. As we close this chapter, we stand in awe of what might have been, a civilization that built, dreamed, and perhaps faltered, leaving only echoes for us to chase. Their story challenges us to rethink our history, to seek wisdom in their triumphs and warnings in their losses. It calls us to be stewards of the earth, to honor the past by building a future that endures. So let us keep searching, with open minds and fearless hearts, for the truth of a world that came before, a world that, in its mystery, might just show us who we are meant to be.